Hello and welcome. It's Alexa Linton here, your host for the Whole Horse Podcast. We're here to look at all the ways that the horse industry is changing before our very eyes in very cool, very amazing ways. And we're chatting with the people at the forefront of that change, the professionals, the trainers, the body workers, the researchers that are helping our lives with horses become better and better. Thanks for being here. I love that you're here and listening and learning. And if you ever have a guest that you want to suggest or a topic that you want to hear, just let me know and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. It means a lot. And I look forward to seeing you for season 4. Hi, everyone. It's Alexa Linton here, and you're here on the Whole Horse Podcast. And we're well into season 4. I'm so excited about the guests that I've had so far on the podcast this year, and I'm stoked about my guest today. And I think you will be too. He's sort of caused a bit of a sensation in the last couple of weeks. Really happy to have you here, Nahshon Cook.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm as I said before we got on, I'm pretty excited about this conversation. And a lot of the people in my world are really being moved and just touched by your words, both on Warwick's podcast. If you haven't heard it, you should definitely go and listen. And also like your writing. As a writer myself, I found that was what really touched me at first. I was like, I saw what Warwick posted that you'd written. I was like, oh man, who is this person that can go to these places? So
Sure.
both of those things. So thank you so much for appearing in our worlds here and sharing this wisdom that you're bringing forward. It's really appreciated.
Well, thank you guys for welcoming me into your world.
Yeah, it's like you've been hiding out, and now it's like, oh, he's here.
That's how it feels, and you know, I'm really grateful for it. I just have to remember to take a few deep breaths, and that I can't do everything at once. But I have an awesome team of people working with me, and so we'll get it done.
Fabulous. Oh my goodness. So tell me a little bit, for those who haven't listened to the podcast, can you share just a little bit of your story as we get started here?
Okay, so I started writing when I was 13 in a after school program that my dad found. And I learned how to ride dressage from very good trainers, Cynthia Spalding, who was a trainer now in Missouri, and then Jean-Francois Favillier, who was he presented horses in hand in the airs above the ground at the Cadre Nord. They would come and they would come in clinic there for some of the kids at the program. And then when they weren't there, I was under the instruction of the folks who started the program, Donna Garnett and Khadijah Haynes and Angel Hoskins.
Yeah. Is that program still happening?
Yeah, not in the form that it was when I was there. It's had to evolve like everything that survives. I'm not in close touch with it, but I'm thankful that it was there when I landed my feet into the world of horses, because it's turned out to be the world that I'm supposed to be in, apparently.
Apparently. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, I have had a few guests on that have shared about different programs like this, and just it's so amazing for me to see, the path that it's put you on, right? This start.
Yeah, and I think the horses, horses, my love for them has always been there, and it's kind of, it's it's sometimes you just don't know how you're gonna get to where you're supposed to be.
Totally.
So you just keep walking,
So Were you one of those kids that loved horses?
Oh, I did. Oh, and like my parents used to take the long way home if they knew that there were some horses that we'd be able to see on the side of the road. Yeah, because I was born and raised in inner city Denver. I mean, and so there was not, I didn't have access to them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I love to hear that. I think that it resonates. There's so many people that are listening and beyond that. I always say that like horses are in our blood. It's just.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is that, I think that there are some people who just love them, and that love came into the world with them,
Mhm.
and for the longest time I just didn't know what to do with it. Um and so and for some time, when I was like in university doing my undergraduate work, I ran from it.
Mhm.
And I mean, and when I didn't have it anymore, there was just like this this really aching space in my heart,
Mhm.
and I found a way, life found a way to make it all come back.
Mhm. I often say I go into withdrawal if I haven't smelled them in a few days.
Yeah, I mean, I would have never. I mean, not in my wildest dreams. Well, I think in my wildest dreams, I think so, but not in dreams that you would think would come true. That like the day would come when I could look out of my bedroom window into my pasture, and see them, in the
Mhm.
morning. Yeah,
Mhm.
and so I'm really understanding that, we're not given dreams that we can't have if we walk, you know?
Mhm.
That's how my life has come on has unraveled, you
Mm.
know? So I wish that for everybody.
Absolutely. I sort of see you as a fellow deep thinker, and for me, I've been fascinated for much of the last 20 years about why humans and horses. Like, why did I come into this world and literally as a 3-year-old be like, I must be near horses.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I don't understand life without horses as a metaphor. I just don't. I look at everything through the lens of how horses have helped me understand what it means to be in the earth. Um, and it's only that lens that gives me peace in my heart, you know? And if there's peace, then it's right. If it feels forced, it's not a right thing. And I mean, and like in like with the types of horses that I'm really fascinated with, it's that kind of thing where um they fight because somebody forced them to do something, and you start working with them in the spaces that they're open to let you in. um and uh and sometimes it's in ways that just don't make sense. I mean, and so I think that for me it's really important, um because all of the horses that I have, their bodies are broken because they were used as tools
Mhm.
for work instead of using the work as a tool for horses. Um and when the latter is done, miracles are possible for real.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
As someone else who takes in the broken ones.
Because and they have the wisdom. They have
Oh,
the wisdom of how to survive trauma,
yeah.
and they teach you that the purpose of war is to protect the little piece that you have left.
Mm.
um and if you can open the space to where they don't feel like they have to do that anymore, then you come upon a really beautiful garden. you know? But you can't have the flowers without the shit. You just can't, you know?
That's, I think, going to be my favorite quote of the podcast right
Yeah.
there.
It's true. Toni Morrison wrote in her book Beloved that anything dead coming back to life is painful. It hurts. You know? I mean, and you know, and the thing is that like the spaces that you have horses, that the spaces that some horses have to work through to let you back into their world, it opens up things that, so for my mare, for example, you know, there was one day where I just started loving on her, and we were supposed to start riding, and she just really just liked me rubbing down her top line, and she started to cry. You know, I mean, like there were tears that started to fall to the floor. And, you know, and this is a mare who had run quite successfully and had qualified for some big races here in the States, and then her paper said unfit for racing anymore. And she ended up in the kill pen, and you know, but that's that big red mare that Warwick posted, my mare Mohawk. And you know, I mean, and she had deemed people unworthy of her trust and attention anymore. And you know, I had to wait until she was ready to start work. You know, I mean, patience is the prayer. You know?
And it sometimes takes a while, you know, it sometimes takes a good while.
Well, I think for horses there is no time.
No.
So it takes the time that it takes, but for them there is no time. And like you know, we figure that if we're in the presence of something for which time doesn't exist, then they're always living in the absolute now, which is eternity.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
And so to be able to have them help you reach that space within yourself is a really powerful tool, especially as a teacher, because people come with their shit too. And like, it's like when they know that they're not going to be pushed beyond what they can give, then they get better faster than anybody could imagine.
Yeah.
You know? And so and it's like you go slow to be fast, you know?
Yeah, it's one of my my fave mantras, especially because I think on this earthly walk, one of my struggles is patience. You know,
Yeah.
it's just slow and down. You know, I kind of have the speed of a hummingbird in this life. You know, just everything's fast, and so that sense of, you know, and I've seen it. You know, I've seen it with my one mare Dream, where, you know, every day I would say, okay, what's real today for you?
Yeah.
And you know, some days it would be like, let's do clicker training. I'm like, okay, I'll go learn that.
I mean, and I think that that's the thing, is that, you know, when horses tell you what they like, they'll do whatever you want.
Oh yeah.
You know?
She shifted, like, you know, one day I would show up, I'd do energy medicine, another day body work, another day clicker training. And, you know, the first time I got on her back, I'm pretty sure she thought I was a cougar. And I stepped off and I said, no, not until she offers it. And I kid you not, 6 months later, she walked up to the fence and she just told me, okay, it's time.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Halter, lead rope, bareback. I was like, okay. And and it was perfect. It was perfect. And not 2 weeks later, she literally offered her back, no bridle, no tack, to a friend of mine. Just, do you want to get on? Sidled up to the fence. It was like this offering of love and trust. I was blown away. I just wept, you know.
And I think that there's a hard, I think that, you know, what we struggle with, a lot of us, me too, I struggle. I love riding horses. I love giving my body to them. But some horses, that's not what they love for me to do. And so like I mean, and my horse Nova has been my master in all of this. And so like we learned how to do like long reining in the classical tradition, in the French and the Viennese school. And now I have my big young thoroughbred Remy, and he does not want to be ridden. And so all of his dressage work is on the long rein. I mean, and he can pee off, and he's learning, he can canter, and he's starting to work up to the idea of his lead changes, and he's a brilliant dressage horse just on the rein, just on the long rein. I mean, and so I think that in this the competitive world, which there can be beauty in it if it's for the right reason, is in what can I teach the horse? And in the artistic world, it is what can the horse teach me? And I think that for anybody who is open to the process of truly understanding the whole walk, being in both worlds, having experience with both worlds is super necessary. Just like, learning how to jump is really important to learn how to sit this extended trot or ride the flying changes or something. When we're not afraid, when we learn how not to be afraid of a horse's power, then we learn how not to be afraid of our own. And when we are not afraid of our own power, then we become wielders of magic things. You know what I'm saying? And the magic that what we're able to wield is just the space to be held of everything that is possible to be possible. We're still possible as long as we are willing to be possible. And I have met some horses that just aren't willing to be possible anymore, and I have to respect that too. And so I mean, because they're also on their own journey. And that's a really important thing to recognize. I had a horse my first horse that my mom got me. I went to Missouri and picked him up and started him, and it turned out that he didn't want to be my horse, and so I contracted a friend to sell him for me, and the lady who had it, she said, tell him that this is the horse that my daughter drew me in a picture a year before she died. And my role in that space was just to get the horse started for her, and in a safe position to where he was able to hear her. And so I think that I'm not quite sure what to call my work. I pass as a trainer, right? But more than anything, I'm a conduit, I think. I'm a channel. In more ways than one, it seems sometimes, but and this is an assignment, so
I do.
And as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, everything works. And when I stop doing that, everything stops working.
Yeah, there's the being and the flow of where life wants to bring us to.
And I mean, because what has happened to me in this last few weeks has been, when I looked at it outside of the realm of, it's not necessarily me that people are interested in, because I'm not much different in my personhood than anybody else, but it's the work. It's the work that people are interested in. And so when I worked out in my head that it's the work that wants to live, then I was able to sleep. Because when I thought that I had to be responsible now to everyone as to how they should feel about horses and how they should see them, then I couldn't handle it. And I was afraid of some of the criticisms that, just being in a bigger realm brings, and I was like, I mean, and everybody is where they're at, that which gives them the eyes to see what they see, and I'm not responsible for that. I'm not gonna judge it, because it's not mine to judge. I'm respecting that we're all where we are, because that's where we are, and that's it. And like, it is it, and like, when you allow it to be it, then a lot of stuff just makes more sense to me. It's a piece. It's letting how they see the work. And I think the thing that I really am, that I'm that's the thing that I think is most important, is that, like, nobody in their personhood is really any different than anything else, but there are different levels of being within that experience. You know what I'm saying? And those levels of being in that experience are purely for the fact that they're purely for the purpose of as a teacher, like, I'm inspired to do the work that I do because of my students. I need them as much as they need me. And like, it's a living thing. Like, the thoughts around horses and the ways in which they are able to heal our hearts wouldn't be possible if I didn't have the people who have entrusted their hearts into my hands within the space and time that we work with each other on a regular basis. I am theirs completely. And when I teach, I am whoever is in that space. I'm theirs completely, as long as they allow me to be that. If I can't be that, I can't help them. Does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And, I know from myself with my work, I've struggled with what to call myself as well, because I don't like calling myself a healer. I find it takes too much onus onto me when it's not. That process, like you say, it's like the people that heal on my table are the ones that they give themselves fully to the process.
They want to heal.
They want to heal.
That's
they
right.
want to be they know where they're going, right? And they're committed to that. And I see it constantly, I'm like, I didn't do that. I was a catalyst for what your body, your mind, your, spirit wanted, where it wanted to go,
Yeah. And I think that's where, and I think that for me, like, that's where I think that's where, when you read the ancient stories of the people who got better, it's because they wanted to get better. And it wasn't the person who gave them permission to be better that made them better, that made the miracle. It was the fact that they were willing for the miracle to take place. And sometimes, even if, like, this machine that we're in, our bodies, if it does this piece of technology, right? If it's not cured, like, the driver within it can be healed. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's when people are able to trust the process enough to get beyond what we've been taught that we are, and move into that space of being what we actually are, that real possibility is possible.
Yeah, I one of the things that I took in really early in my career, thank God I did, was that it was about seeing every being. And you said this in the other podcast, and it was really like, oh yeah, seeing every being as holy. It was seeing every being as whole, as fully whole, and not to be fixed, and not to be, that I have to go in there and repair. But that
Yeah.
if I can see that wholeness, it comes to fruition if it's the time and the place.
Yeah, and I think that that's the thing, is that it's just a matter of holding space. It's a matter of holding space, and it's a matter of understanding that we move from that space of wisdom that judgment holds to that space of openness that enlightenment is, when we just hold the space for whoever is there with us to just be there with us in whatever way is true, you know.
Hmm.
And it's not like some big, like, temple Elijah coming down from heaven with the chariots or something, you know. And it's not like, it's not that. It's just the ability to open our eyes to the fact that everything is what it is, and that's what it's supposed to be, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and when we are able to do that, we're able to understand that, we really don't have to be afraid of what everything is, because it all runs its course, and it needs to. And if we just understand that we're just part of this process of creating something that needs to be created in this moment in time, then we begin to understand that we're just a note in a whole song, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We're just a breath, a single breath, each of us, in a whole lifetime, I mean. And if we take that knowledge of the birth, life, and death of each moment, then for me, things just are more manageable, then being a person, then personhood isn't so hard, you know
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because, like, when we get wrapped up in the identity of all that makes up the space that we're in, we lose who we are, and then we start to worry and we can't feel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at any time, please stop me, because I get taken away. And
I love it. I love it. I'm just like, sort of like, I think Warwick used the word mesmerized. I'm kind of in.
I mean, I couldn't control it.
it's
I
it's
just,
perfect.
and I was tired for the rest of the week. And that happens sometimes, where it's just like whoosh.
Yeah.
And I haven't listened to it, and I told him that I honestly really don't remember much of what happened.
Yeah, I can imagine when I
You know,
listened to it, I was like, "Ooh, he's gone to another space, and
because
like a
it
great
was it was
space."
it was really but again, the birth, life, and death of a moment.
Yeah.
And if we trust ourselves to that space, then we're okay.
Totally. Totally.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's like with anything, it's like, even, and I want to get into your teaching and some other pieces, but I'm sure even in your lessons, I know for myself, I get into this, like, sometimes this self-doubt of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, when this person comes and they're expecting something, where is this all going to go? And it's that, again, that trust is, okay, it's going to go the way it's going to unfold the way it needs to unfold. It's going to go the way it needs to go, in those moments. And that's part of what I'm hearing here from
Yeah.
you.
I mean,
Hmm.
and as far as, like, students go, like, I have people who range from, like, trail riders to Grand Prix level dressage riders, and, like, I understand that the only reason they're here is because of what I'm able to do and how that can help them.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that, like, the only thing that I can do to help them is care for what they're here for. I must take care of myself. I must rest.
Mm-hmm.
I must have time for fun. And I don't, and like for a long time, I just didn't know how to do that. I did not know how to have fun. And that is something that I really, really struggle with, because like, you know, you know, it seems like the only things that I'm interested in ever since childhood have been those things that have taught me how to give myself to life. I love
Mm-hmm.
to read, and you give yourself to a book and it makes you feel safe, and it makes you feel safe within a world that's not yours, enough that you begin to understand it. And like, it was that helped me learn how to hear horses.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
um and 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 to trust that what they said was true
Mm.
about their experience, you know. And it's the same for people. There's the words that people speak, and then there are the words that people say. I mean, and I am finding, like, as a teacher, when I challenge someone to, when I say that, what happens if I don't know isn't an acceptable answer, that usually gets them out of their brain, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes them break it down, and then they allow the experience to be a bridge from the known to the unknown and a safe way back. And then we have
Mm.
goals that are reached.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, because in the midst of all of it, it must be practical. Right?
At the end of the
um,
day, yeah.
yeah, I mean, and then and like, I have a student who has been with me since I started teaching, and she's a lawyer, and she's like, Nahshon, she's a civil rights attorney here. She said, Nahshon, I held space for my client like you held space for me. Like, this is my job in the world.
I love that. I
You know what
love
I'm
that.
saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do. And I want to track back because I've got two questions.
Yeah.
They're on my list. One was, well, this one wasn't on my list, but I'm super curious because as a person that has also had a hard time learning to play, been a little overly serious in her life, I want to know, what have you found? What are your, how have you found that you like to play in your
Well,
life?
I have two nieces
Mm-hmm. I think I
that
saw
are
some
just
pictures of them.
absolutely wonderful. And Sunday, my oldest niece, she was like, Uncle, what is your superpower? And I said, Belle, my superpower is words. And she goes, well, ask me what my superpower is. And I said, what is your superpower? She said, my superpower is information. You know, I mean, and she's 3, you know, and like, she helps me understand how you can have fun being smart, which is something I just never learned how to do. Like, being smart was a survival mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and because now my family is in a different space, now we're just teaching them how to be intelligent for fun. And so it's just like, they have fun having really beautiful conversations like that,
Mm.
you know
Mm-hmm.
and like, that's helping me understand that, even though I'm trained as an academic, that it doesn't have to be a cloudy sky. There can be sunshine in knowing what you know.
Mm.
you know
Mm-hmm.
and
Absolutely.
that really makes me, she's really helped me understand that. So it's not
Mm.
necessarily anything that I do. It's more of how I look at what I do.
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm training in osteopathy right now, which requires a high level of geekiness, like
Yeah,
very, very, very high level of geekiness to even pursue in the first place. But I've realized over the last 5 years that, like, I play in anatomy, I play in physiology,
yeah, yeah,
I love it, which may
yeah.
sound weird, but it's a preferred way to spend my evenings.
Well, on that point, I had a student who's a trainer in a different part of the state, and she has a horse that we're schooling through the levels bridleless, and
Mm,
um and are bitless, and then we're starting the bridleless work, and
yep.
she came to me last Thursday, and she said, okay, I would like you to see some of our bridleless work. And when she took the bridle off, her whole countenance changed. She just had so much joy, and her
Mhm.
horse moved so much better. And I said, what is this difference between whether or not you have the reins in your on his attached to his face or around his neck? She says, well, here, he tells me when they're around his neck, he just tells me where he wants to go, and I have to follow it. And I said, how does that feel? She said, joyous. I said, okay, let's put your side pull back on, and let's ride out of joy. And the horse's body just bloomed.
Mm,
The horse's body just bloomed.
mhm.
you know I mean, and so it's like, even it's like we have to give ourselves permission to enjoy the beauty of the intelligence of the endeavor of seeking. You know what I'm saying? It
Mm,
doesn't have to be super devotional or religious or academic. Like, just it can just be fun.
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know it can just be fun, and it's just like and that's really, really important.
Yeah.
you know
Mhm.
and I think that if more people just learn to have fun while they're learning, they would make so much more progress.
I fully agree with that sentiment.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. When I ride, so I'm a dancer. So when I ride, I try to embody like that place in myself where I'm
yeah,
just free and I'm just free and in the rhythm, and
yeah,
it makes all the difference. It's like
yeah.
it just takes me to that spot where I'm fully here and now in my body, and the rest just falls away. Yeah.
And that's a place of permission. You
Hmm.
have to give yourself permission to be there. And that's what I'm learning too, is that in teaching people, you have to teach them how to give themselves permission.
Yeah.
you know you have to teach them how to learn how to give themselves permission. and
Mm.
and and it's really challenging for really smart people, because giving yourself permission to reach an end is not usually it's not usually it's always, how can I? So if we use Kant's categorical imperative, if we say that, we use the work as an end in and of itself, as opposed to a means to an end,
Mm.
like, then the, teaching people how to let the work be an end in and of itself, that's a really hard thing for a lot of people to do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, and I think that in that sentiment, Kant he very much understood, even if I'm not sure if he understood that he understood, as a means to an end is the mind, and an end in and of itself is the heart. you know and
Mm.
and like, each of those spaces has its own place in the world. um and it's trying to find that space where your head and your heart talk to each other, instead of letting your head analyze all the time and letting your heart just observe all of the time, letting your head emote and letting your heart feel. It's like the circle of AIDS, like the energy feeds itself. And if it's not feeding itself within the context of a horse, then the horse begins to lose its body.
Yeah, because I mean, horses, they live in the heart. They live in the heart.
Yeah. And if we don't work out of that space and understand the theoretical concepts and the goals and the aims of why it's important to embark on this endeavor that is totally foreign to both bodies on the journey together, then that's why the academic part is so important. But it's important that it doesn't become religious. It's important to say that some horses will find the canter out of the extended trot, and some horses will find the canter out of the piaffe. Some horses feel safe enough for whatever reason, because that's the thing. I think that they come in with everything that life has taught them is real too. And we can't train that out, and so it's saying hey, what is real to you? And then they'll say, this is where I need help, this is where my fear muscles are super strong, and this is where my confidence can carry me through. If we can use the confidence where I'm strong to help not make my fear muscles so strong, then we begin to help the horse then also move between that space of head and heart. And so I think that it's just a matter of, and I think that for me, that's my place as a teacher. And so, semantically in my body, I can feel the person's tension in my body. And so I can very clearly say, hey, spread your pinky toe out just a little bit more and feel it unlock your groin muscle, right? If you soften your finger but don't completely give the rein, the horse will begin to slow down. That, this is how we begin the process of collection. If you just close the finger with a steady rein contact, not a pulling rein contact, but understanding the rein contact is like a Rastafari's dreadlock, and that's the antenna by which they talk to God, right? If our rein is able to be that, then we have this path of communication where we inspire and lead and help and hold each other. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's also, as far as what horses do or what we ride them in or what we work them in, for me, that's totally up to them. I have a horse who totally locks his pole when he has a cavesson and reins attached to the cavesson and try to ride him bridleless. And so he goes in a bit that has a lot of tongue relief, and he's in heaven, and so I'm not into the dogma or this is the way that horses need to be worked.
Yeah, for sure. And being someone who, I ride one of my mares in a Basel Hackamore and one in a side pull Cavesson, and they prefer them, separately, right? And they open to that. And I love that sense of, this doesn't have to be this box, and letting the horses choose, what feels good.
I have spent a fortune on giving my horses choices.
I'm sure.
And it has saved some of their lives.
Yep. Big time.
And so then I trained competitively. I trained riders for competition for many years. And the challenge that I had was just that, and on an international level, we trained. It was just I can't allow myself to just have it be so. Budant, he just said, you become a better horseman by observing than reading. I mean, and so just that space, it's been really hard for me, and maybe this is just my failing as a coach, to allow and help riders get from that place of like, your pattern. We don't need to keep riding it over and over and over again. Like, let's let the horse's body tell us what it would like to do today.
Yes.
And it's not a judgment on people, because horses are in our lives really for what we want them to be in our lives for.
Yeah.
But I just, my mom once told me, she goes, Nash, if you don't see the light, don't stay. And so it's a world that I left. And then she said, and then I didn't understand that until one of my students in Thailand, he was 8. And he says, Nahshon, I have a riddle for you. And like his parents brought him because he wouldn't talk to anybody else. And he says, if you're in a dark room and the light is only there because you are, what does that mean? And I said, I don't know what that means. He goes, well, silly, it means that you are the light. You know what I'm saying? And like that, along with what my mom told me, like, if the light, if you don't see the light, don't stay, the spirit isn't there anymore. And I don't want to be anywhere that the spirit isn't. That is my home.
Yeah.
That, when the spirit is there, I can do magic things. But when it's not, I can't do anything.
Yeah. I feel you on that. Yeah. And I know I wasn't supposed to ask about your mom, but she sounds so amazing. And
she is. Yeah. My mom is my greatest gift in this life. I love her. And my dad too, but my mom is the one.
Yeah.
She's the one that, like, even in the midst of all of this stuff happening, she's like, let's go have some pumpkin bread. You know what I'm saying?
Let's keep you grounded here in all this.
Let's keep you healthy. Let's keep you healthy, because if you're not healthy, you can't help.
Yeah.
And so she organizes it. And when she bought this place for me, my dad came in, and he lives in Chicago, and he came in and spent a month, and we hired a crew, and they got my whole barn and arena together for me. But when my mom bought this place, she retired so that she could run the organizational piece for me, and I could just do my work.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's like, if you believe you can do it, I believe you can do it. So let's do it, because we only have so much time.
Totally.
And she's like, and this is an opportunity that, that and with where we are, we might not have access to a location like this ever again. And so it's and there are some things in this experience where we only do get one chance.
Yeah.
It's really important. And she says, like she said, always be prepared. Always be prepared for the opportunity to the best of your ability, because that means that you're present and that you've done the work to be able to be what you need to be in this particular moment of the experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, she's the brightest crayon in the box that I've ever seen.
I bet she is.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I extend my appreciation and gratitude to her for for everything she supported you in, and what you've been able to become
Yeah.
through that support. Mm-hmm.
She's, I was in India and I was eating dinner, and there was a man who came up to me and he said, "Always remember that for a man, the path to heaven is found in the footsteps of his mother."
Mm.
And for me, that is so true.
Mm.
That is so true. She's she's taught me how to trust myself, and that's why I'm talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing,
yeah,
amazing. Um, I have all these questions
yeah.
because
Let's hit them.
I
Let's
put
go.
them out to my listeners and to my people,
Sure.
and they were just, just like me, so moved, and I think felt so met by your words, both speaking and reading them. It's so funny because like a week and a half ago, I'd never heard of you, and
Like the
since
rest of
then,
the world, like
right?
almost everybody else in the world.
Exactly. And since
Yeah,
then, I swear to God, like you're all over my news feed because,
apparently so.
everybody's sharing your stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's landing in this way that's like I said at the beginning, before we start chatting, it's like this. I like to talk about this idea of a sweet spot, right? It's like this place where it's like, oh, that's so it just works. It just feels right. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of how it's landing for people,
Yeah.
and they're like, give me more of that I want. It's like it's speaking to a place that they've just been waiting for.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm so excited, and one of the reasons I do this podcast is because the horse industry is changing so much, and there are people like you, and many others that are coming forward and sort of being that voice for horses that we've been waiting for, right?
Well, and I think in my case, it feels more. It feels. I think that horse people like this. There's a tradition of horse people like this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I was just, you know, weren't deemed valuable.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't think that this tradition of horsemanship and the practice of being with horses and the mystery of learning to love them has changed. Um, I think that the space with which the horse now occupies is beginning to
Mm-hmm.
change. I
Yeah.
mean, there are only two people, there are only two types of horse people in this world: horse people who use their horses as teachers, and horse people who use their horses as tools. Um, and consequently, that's oftentimes how people teach people or treat people, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it's not a judgment, it's just a fact. Um, and 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 I think that I I I I was pushed really hard as a young rider
Mm-hmm.
to compete, because it met the ends of various people involved, and consequently, I thought that that's how horses needed to be trained.
Mm-hmm.
Push, 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 push. Because we do what we know,
Mm-hmm.
right? We do what we know. And then I don't know how I don't know oh, I had just begun to see how the horses weren't happy, and how
Yeah.
their bodies started to break down, and like how they were retiring at 13 instead of like 23 or 24 or 25 healthily. And I was just like, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to because, when ego gets in the way, the horse gets lost. When the ego gets in the way, the horse gets lost. When the teacher's ego gets in the way, the students get lost. Either way, the horse gets lost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's and like, that is the common denominator to really learning how valuable being able to feel is.
Mm-hmm.
And how important it is to learn to listen, and how important it is to learn how to see how much power our intentions have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what's so incredible, is that people just don't know how powerful they are. And so because they don't know how powerful they are, they try to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of strength to feel pain. It takes a lot of power to feel pain. It takes a lot of strength to try and push pain away.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of power to be loved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of strength to not grow into feeling like you deserve to be loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
like all of this work, all of this shows up in the lessons.
Oh, absolutely.
All of it shows up in the lessons. All of it shows up in the horses' bodies. And then when this happens, and people don't have the courage to just know that they don't have to be perfect, and in the process of progress, mistakes are made because we just don't know how to not do it, then we blame each other for when things are wrong. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, you know what, like, we fuck up, we apologize, and we move on.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
takes a lot of courage.
Exactly. The word that comes to mind is vulnerability as well. Like that sense of, can I be vulnerable enough to go, wow, I don't know this yet, or I'm not there.
And I think understanding that that's the power of it all.
Yeah.
Because when you don't know, there's the possibility of beginning to learn and know what you don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
When we, my mama always tells me, don't make excuses, because excuses will kill you. And you begin to understand, and you begin to see it, that, students who are afraid of not knowing, they're afraid of, they change things all the time. This bit isn't working, let's try this bit, let's try this noseband, let's try this saddle,
Mm-hmm.
let's try this thing. It's like watching a little mouse on a wheel. And all of these things, these changes, are made out of fear of not knowing what to do. And when they don't get where they want to go, then they start looking for a new horse.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the word that was coming to mind earlier was this sense of horses as expendable.
Yeah, they're commodified.
Right.
Or they start to look for a new trainer. And so then trainers come up with these systems to be able to continue to try and live a life that they grew up wanting to live, not understanding how much of themselves they would have to compromise to be able to survive. And that is something that I made an agreement with God with. I said, if I have to do that, I don't want it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like I can't feel to survive.
That's
I don't want to do that. So like, if this is what you want me, if working with horse, I remember I was 19. I was like, if working with horses and teaching people is really what you want me to do, this is the only thing that I'm not willing to do. And if this is what you want me to do, then take the gift away. Because I can use the other stuff that I've been given.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm just not willing. I'm not willing to commodify what is holy.
Wow.
People or horses or
People or
myself.
horses. Yeah.
You know, and and like, I see that common thread in everything, and everything that allows me to see it, let me say. Because then there are those people and things that don't want to be seen. There are those horses that don't want my help. I can't see them if they don't want me to see them. But I figure that if they're here and they need fixing and I don't know how to do it, they will show me the way. And I trust that. And they always do.
All right. I have this other question. We're actually like, we're gonna wrap up shortly, even though I just like to chat with you all day.
Yeah.
But I want to know, because you're a reader, and a lot of my listeners are readers. And I want to know what your books are. What are your go-tos? What are those places you go for wisdom, for learning?
In horse sense, or for
Everything.
what?
Let's
Because
go everything.
I have a huge library. Horse wise, I am reading currently Horse Brain, Human Brain by Janet L. Jones.
Okay.
It is the neuroscience of horsemanship, and it is getting smart about how horses, it's the subtitle is Getting Smart About How Horses and Humans Think, Act, and Work Together. And she does a really brilliant job of explicating how to handle certain behaviors that horses do that we don't want, but even more importantly, why they do them. And then, and I think that that's really important, because then it takes something that is punishable that just then turns into something that needs to be corrected. And like, in the process of, because it's like trust, technique, conditioning. Like, so like, if we praise the horse for doing if we praise them richly for doing something that they have done well, then they don't guard themselves when we need to help them. You know what I'm saying?
I absolutely do. Yep.
And people too, right? When you reward them for being at least willing to try, they're not offended when you see something, when you see a piece of their willingness that is not strong enough to give what needs to be given. And then that space is created for the teacher to get down on their knees and gather all the dirt to make the bricks, to build the bridge, to cross the canyon. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's a conversation, and sometimes it's a word, and sometimes it's a smile, and sometimes it's a look, or I mean, it's just and depending on, and I think that it's the teacher's job, it's my job as a teacher, to begin to really observe and trust what I feel about how people like to be rewarded, just as much as how they like to be corrected. Because those are
Absolutely.
things that people really, if you ask them, kind of like you ask them, what do you think are some of the assets that you bring to your writing? practice? It's really hard for a lot of people to answer that question.
Oh yeah.
Because they look at the process of progress out of the lens of everything that I can't do or am not, you know, instead of everything that I can do and everything that I am, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the short answer.
That's the short answer. I know. I always say that if people reward me with chocolate chip cookies or something like that, like I'd do anything for them. Like,
mine is lemon heads. I love lemon heads, and so like that's a discipline. That's a discipline that I have had to really, I've really had to back up on, because every time I thought I did something well, I would go get some lemon heads, and I was just in heaven. But
right?
I had to find fruit. So
right? Yeah, something a little healthier as a reward for sure. Yeah. That's awesome. Any other books that, horse books that you would recommend, that you've gone back to over the years, or that have really?
So a really good. I have been in love with Nuno Oliveira's work since I was a kid. And there is a book called The Truth and Teachings of Nuno Oliveira by Eleanor Russell that is absolutely brilliant. And it's just quotes. I really love how Oliveira's art blossomed out of his trust of horses to create the art. He trusted them to sculpt his body so that it could be what they needed it to be for them. And that is what I want to do, and that is what I'm learning to do with my body. How can I make my body a servant to the horse's body by, sitting over their heart and just listening to what it has to tell me? You know what I'm saying?
I love that visual. I love that.
And it's true. And when you work out of that space, like one thing that's really super effective for me is that, when I have a horse, or when I have a horse and rider pair, or I have a timid rider on a horse that is just too much for them because they don't know what to do with all of this. One of the biggest things is to establish, after some semblance of a seat is established, is, like, imagine just the person or the color that makes you feel safe, and warm that space up enough in your mind so that you can relax, and it changes the whole energy of the arena. It changes the whole energy of the arena. It helps people understand that, like, what they think only I have, because I think that that's the thing. I think that that's really why this attention may be coming. I'm not sure, but I think it's really important for people to understand that if we listen, we get the answers we need. Not if we try to find answers, but if we listen. If we allow ourselves to be aware of just not necessarily even how we're feeling, but what it feels like to just feel.
Yeah.
Then we begin to heal ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think tracking back to the power versus strength, oftentimes strength is, we see it as disconnecting from our felt feeling sense, because it makes me weak, to be in the felt sense. But
and that idea for me right there is also trauma.
Oh, absolutely.
That's also trauma, and that's a self-inflicted one. And just like in that moment we're giving ourselves permission to live with that explanation, so too can we learn to allow ourselves to give ourselves permission that that explanation is no longer helpful.
Yeah, it's not
It's like
working.
it's outlived its purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it had a purpose, but now that moment's life, that moment's birth, life and death has gone. It's like the underside of a leaf in autumn. It was
Mm-hmm.
green and now it's red and now it's yellow and now it falls to the floor and now it's soil for the roots, for the tree's new leaves. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And the question is, can you let it go?
The question is, why is it valuable to hold on to?
Yes, there's the real question.
How is this helpful?
Yeah.
And is it healthful? Right?
Yeah.
Is it adding to the sum total of your being or taking away?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like this is the power of beautifully sculpted language.
Yeah. I'm going to be waiting for your books to come out. As are
Yeah.
many. As are many.
You know, it's a work. It's a work.
Mm-hmm.
And but and it's hard, but I can do it.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And knowing that makes it just a little bit easier. It's like you know, it's daytime and the sun is shining through the window.
Mm.
You know, that's kind of how it feels.
Yeah.
So
We'll be waiting out here and excited, and also just what a pleasure. Like, it's been an honor today to speak with you.
well,
And
I very much appreciate you reaching out.
mm,
Um, because that's something that takes a lot of courage on my part. I'm really afraid of initiating things like this.
mm,
Um, because most of the time I just don't know. It's hard for me to say anything about myself
mm-hmm,
as far as introductions go, because my life is so wrapped up in helping other people out of the spaces that I can help them out of, that like when like writing a bio, my bios about myself are just shit because I just don't know what to say,
mm-hmm.
you know. And so I'm really grateful that even in spite of my personhood insecurities, that the work that I am supposed to be doing is making it to where I don't have to face that fear. You know?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but
Absolutely. Well,
I really appreciate your time.
oh, ditto, ditto. And I hope that we can meet again at some point
Yeah.
and dive even deeper. In the future. And I look forward to seeing how it all rolls out for you over the next little bit. And I want to, for those who don't know how to connect with you, I know you've got your Facebook page.
Yeah, everything else is in the work. Like
Yeah,
work was like no website because I didn't need one.
yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
I try to be a minimalist.
yeah, absolutely.
But it's all
Oh,
coming. And so
that's
they
great.
told me within the next 30 days or so that it'll be up and ready,
Yeah,
and you know, and you know,
great.
and so it's all good.
Great. Well, for now, we'll point you towards Nahshon's Facebook page at Nahshon Cook Horsemanship. And then when your website's ready, please send it and I will post it at wholehorse.ca under your episode, so people can go and have a look. And I've really, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've totally had tears in my eyes, this whole time, and just feeling very, so much resonance in your message. And I'm sure that if that's happening for me, my listeners are feeling similarly. So very, very grateful for that. And yeah. Thank you again, Nahshon.
Yes, be well, and thank you too.
And thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to this conversation. I hope that it touched you in whatever way it needed to, and I look forward to seeing you very soon for our next conversation.